Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance. Good morning. I hope everyone had a lovely and restful weekend. We're ready to begin the week with another fantastic group of speeches. Once again, I'm Susan Sanford. I am the public speaking teacher, and I would like to welcome all of our guests and family here, as well as those joining via live stream. So today we are hearing from Chloe Schneider, Grace Compton, Lucia Fogler, Theo Patterson, Tucker Roberts, Eric Hazelton, Cameron Gregory, Grady Walsh, and Annabelle Wang.
"22. I feel like the gravity of this number can sometimes be lost in the stream of infinitely large numbers that follow. You may be wondering why I am focusing so much on our graduation year. But to me, it is so much more than our final year of high school. It is the number of serious injuries I have had since 4th grade. In fact, when I was younger, clogs were banned from my wardrobe because I would always roll my ankle when I fell in them. While many people receive their injuries playing sports, roughhousing with siblings and friends, or participating in some other daring adventure, I always seem to injure myself in the most obscure ways possible. 4th grade. The first time I had ever transferred schools. I was surprisingly confident in my athletic ability, and it was field day. I was planning on going hardcore that year to impress my new friends. I competed in the potato sack race, the hula hooping contest, and the dizzy bat races, but I met my match when I began double dutch. I guess I was more athletic than I thought, and I must have been jumping too fast and too high for the 2 people holding the ropes because I found myself entangled. I ended up breaking my foot in 2 places. That may sound dramatic, but I promise you the situation became much more extreme than it needed to. A crowd formed. People were trying to sneak peeks at the new girl. It was not the impression that I wanted to leave. The EMTs arrived and carted me around the field in front of the entire student body that I had just joined. They were whispering about how bad this was and how there was going to be an inevitable surgery needed. I was moved to the medical tent where they brought out what seemed to be every piece of equipment and then proceeded to do absolutely nothing with all of it. My mom was called, and once she arrived, 2 men proceeded to carry me from the wheelchair to my car. Needless to say, the summer that followed was not very fun. Fast forward a few years to the summer before 7th grade. I was excited to start off my summer as a vacation Bible school teaching assistant. On the morning of my first day of the VBS week, I was helping my grandma take some groceries into her house before heading over to my church. A note: the walkway leading up to my grandma's apartment was filled with a lot of mulch. On a particular trip to the car, I had a bag filled with 4 one-pound pasta sauce jars. Unfortunately, a piece of mulch became lodged in my shoe, so I swung the bag over my shoulder and bent down to remove said piece of mulch. Once again, I had underestimated my athletic ability, and I had put too much force behind the swing of the bag, and all 4 pasta sauce jars fell out onto my head while I was upside down onto the same spot. I was rendered unconscious only to wake up crying, forgetting much of what had just happened, and to see my little brother laughing over me. The next 3 weeks of summer were spent sewing and knitting. The following summer, I was on my annual Catholic Heart Work Camp trip. That year, we were in the exotic Roanoke, Virginia. One of my team's tasks was to rip out stairs and deconstruct and rebuild a deck. I was given the task of ripping out the stairs, although I made the mistake of starting from the middle and working my way down. At one point, I realized that I had left my hammer on a higher-up stair and began to go get it when my friend called my name, asking her to get a snack. When I heard my name called, I turned around to look at her. Forgetting that I had taken out the middle stairs of the deck, I fell through the deck and tore, dislocated, bruised, and strained my knee. I was supposed to go to California to surf and sail the next week. Those are only 3 of my 22 injuries, but I assure you they are all just as random. I walked into my friend and broke my wrist. Another, I picked up a basketball for the first time in a year, and I immediately broke my finger. Through all of the injuries, my family now has a cabinet filled with an assortment of braces. My great aunt Carolyn was recently in town with a, let us say, uncomfortable looking ankle. Oh, Carolyn, were you in the right place? When she arrived, I promptly ran upstairs and grabbed the 5 ankle braces I had that she was able to pick from. I've spent a lot of time in hospitals with my amazing mom. With the many tears, bear hugs, and inside jokes that we shared, I've become oddly grateful for those moments spent with her. Now, I've actually not had an injury since I arrived here at the Steward School in my junior year. Maybe I've moved on from that stage of my life. Maybe I've become more careful, but it is bittersweet. All I know is that my injuries have quite literally become a part of me physically and emotionally, and I will always be grateful for what I have both gained and lost from them. Thank you.
As she guided me through these incredible 18 years, I don't know if she ever realized that the person I most wanted to be was her. Thank you, Mom. You're my guidepost for everything. I can relate to this quote, even though it isn't my own. It is actually a quote from my favorite show. Has anyone ever seen Gilmore Girls? Well, if you haven't, it's a show about a strong mother-daughter relationship, and my family absolutely loves it. The lifestyle the Gilmore Girls live is like my life and my family's lives because of my amazing mom, how close my family is, and living in a house of only girls. First, let's start off talking about my mom. She is one of the most hardworking and sweetest people in the world. In Gilmore Girls, the mother Lorelai and her daughter Rory decided that they were best friends first, mother-daughter second. I feel the same way about my mom. She has raised 2 girls all by herself, and I can say she's done a pretty great job. My mom works so hard so that she can send my sister and I to Steward. She does everything for everyone else. My mom is a women's health nurse practitioner, so her occupation is a great example of her character. Somehow, she is so kind that it sometimes backfires for my sister and I. I remember when we were little, we went to a play. Ashton and I wanted raffle tickets, but my mom didn't bring any cash with her. My mom's friend then offered to buy us tickets. We were not usually lucky, but of course, we won. My mom then made us give the prize to her friend and her friend's daughter because she technically bought the tickets. Thanks, Mom. Ashley and I were very upset by this, but in the end, it made sense, and of course, my mom did the right thing. She somehow always has a way of making me happy. She reminds me of Lorelai because of how funny and supportive she is. Her character and work ethic inspire me greatly. Mom, you're the best. My family is as close as Lorelai and Rory. I am thankful that I am able to talk with them about anything. We have so much fun together, whether that be dance parties in the kitchen or even just nights at home. We just overall enjoy spending time together. My favorite memories include watching TV and vacations. My family has watched many shows together over the years. Our favorites include The Voice, Survivor, and of course, Gilmore Girls. We have also been on many trips as a family. Right before the pandemic, we went to the Bahamas, which was definitely my favorite vacation, and I feel like we grew closer through these activities. I also want to talk about how close my sister and I have been from the start. I have always looked out for her. On the day she was born, a nurse took her out of the room, but in my 2-year-old mind, she was taking her away. So I ran after the nurse, screaming. Another instance was on our first day at Steward. I knew we had to go to after school, but my sister didn't. She was a kindergartner, and her teacher accidentally brought her to the carpool line. I asked to go look for her, but the after-school staff said no. So I asked to go to the bathroom, but I went to find her anyway. I have continued to look out for her even though we aren't little anymore. My sister and I have also continued to get closer as we've gotten older. In the Gilmore household, there were only 2 girls, but there are 3 in mine. Unlike Rory, I have a younger sister. My sister Ashley is funny, kind, and always supports me. She is my best friend. Well, until it comes to getting ready. If you have ever had to share a bathroom with someone, then you know how hard this is. Imagine getting ready when 3 girls are trying to dry their hair. Well, this is my dilemma each morning. Even though my mom is in a completely different bathroom, if we both plug in hair dryers from these different bathrooms, we blow a fuse. Trust me, this happens a lot. Because of this struggle each morning, we tend to be late to school. If you don't already know, we are one of the families that live the closest to school. When I say closest, I mean approximately 20 to 30 seconds away. We moved close to Steward so that Ash and I could walk home when we were in middle school. I might have been able to walk home, but I would still usually get at least 3 tardies that week. It has been great to hear the lines, "Here come the Compton girls," or "The Compton girls are rolling in," or my favorite, "It's 7:59 for Mr. Mundy." But don't worry, this year I only have 4 tardies. I feel lucky to be a part of such an amazing family and am so thankful for how much love we share. I also want to acknowledge the Gilmore Girls show for bonding my family even further. Thank you, Mom and Ashley, for making life so fun and full of laughter. I'm grateful for all the similarities between the Gilmore Girls and the Compton Girls. I would not trade this relationship for anything.
Andre Gide once said, "Man cannot discover new oceans unless he has the courage to lose sight of the shore." Hi, my name is Lucia, and there are 3 things you should know about me. First, I am the 7th generation in my family to hold my name. Second, I've been to Disney properties across the world over 30 times. Yes, over 30 times. And third, I can speak 3 languages: English, Spanish, and Mandarin Chinese. Although these fun facts seem random and honestly a tad disconnected, they encapsulate my identity now, who I've become, and how I've grown, all through the experiences and cultures that I've encountered through traveling. My family, since I was born, has always traveled, so much so that I don't even remember the childish joys of my first plane ride, the unexpected bumps and feelings of the plane rising and coasting, but now it's just a normal feeling as we venture down to the happiest place on earth. Although Disney is not often thought about as the most foreign place to visit, from a young age, my family trips to the theme parks and in adventuring through the thick Florida humidity into different lands opened a world in which showed me the memories that I could too create with my family and the cultures outside of Florida that I could too visit one day. Now looking back, it makes sense why every single time we went, I'd always beg my family to go to Epcot, where I demand to get a World Showcase passport to fill up with the stickers and stamps of the different countries' pavilions throughout our vacation. As I grew up, my family's vacations shifted to an exploration of more international destinations, giving me more exposure to the world. And as I explored destinations farther and farther from my home, I oddly felt a greater sense that I belonged. At home, I'd always encounter my name being different from everyone else's. No one was able to pronounce it correctly, and don't even get me started on the variations I'd hear every single time I went to Starbucks. But what really mattered to 10-year-old me was that during my childhood, traveling to the beach, Disney, or even another state within the tourist shops, I would always eagerly search for my name to be plastered upon brightly colored plastic keychains, but always to no avail. So when I started traveling internationally, I wasn't expecting anything to change. I didn't expect to find plastic keychains or even the correct pronunciation of my name. But instead, unexpectedly, I found the special meaning that cultures around the world held about names. In traveling to Spain, I even found that my name, although pronounced differently, was a commonality for girls and felt more connected to other cultures and the background and history of my own name, all because of what I encountered abroad. Not only did I learn more about who I was, but each trip I took with my family pushed me more further towards independence to the point where I was ready to embark upon a solo adventure that I would write for myself and that would shape my own identity deeper over 6 weeks in Kaohsiung, Taiwan. Through being granted a scholarship through the State Department, I prepared to participate in the National Security Language Initiative for Youth to learn Mandarin Chinese through an in-person immersive exchange. Although I had mailed off every single supporting document, had been granted a visa, and was preparing to start my quarantine, weeks before my departure, I was abruptly no longer able to travel due to rising COVID cases. Although I wasn't going to be able to be faced with an in-person immersion, I would no longer be able to live with a host family and experience the culture by attending school in Taiwan. I quickly learned that even though I'd be experiencing the program from a different perspective than originally intended, I'd be introduced to a culture significantly different than my own and would learn the importance of languages. Every day during my program, even with the challenges that I, alongside my teachers and other students, had to originally face, was placed in situations outside of my comfort zone where I had to rely upon my limited Mandarin skills. It was the situations like these that, although at the time pushed me past my own boundaries, I was not only able to see and comprehend the beauty of the language and the culture of my host country, but also learned how to overcome differences and challenges that studying in a different country presents. Each trial that I faced and new word that I learned in Mandarin shaped me more and more into a person I've become today. Just like in my own adventures, if you have ever traveled, lived, or studied abroad, you know the power of being pushed out of your comfort zone, what it will teach you, and the lessons that other cultures will show you, such as for me, the ability to embrace the uniqueness of my name. For me, traveling has placed me in situations that's caused me to work under pressure. It showed me teachings of other cultures that often caused me to question my own beliefs. It's allowed me to learn about and shape my own identity. I urge everyone here today, if you're ever faced with an opportunity to experience a culture other than your own, learn a language allowing you to communicate with people of various backgrounds, or simply, anytime you're faced with a challenge, opportunity, or experience that pushes you past the personal boundaries of your own comfort zone, go for it. It might not be the traditional path that society wants us to follow, but you never know the experiences you could encounter and how you could shape your own identity if you didn't take the risk. Thank you.
There's nothing like looking dead. 60 feet underwater, red light doesn't reach you. Your skin and fingernails are corpse-like and gray, as if you've been put through a monochrome filter. Yet the underwater world around you is vibrant. When you're scuba diving, everything is fascinating, and things are beautifully alive. Scuba diving can be terrifying, though. I was 11 when my parents asked me if I'd like to learn to dive. It'd be great. I'd do the bookwork, get equipment, do confined water dives in a pool, and take the final steps to get my certification while already on vacation on an island known for being visited mostly by divers. I mean, don't get me wrong, it sounded perfect. Was I a strong swimmer? No, definitely not. Did I know literally any of the hand signals used underwater or anything about diving safely? Nope. But hey, one can learn, right? Yeah, one can learn. I spent about 4 months doing the e-learning course. It was, to say the least, unenjoyable. I mean, don't get me wrong, I really was trying to take an interest in the material, but I can't overstate how boring it was. It was like the driver's ed course, dry, and the important parts are impossible to remember until you're actually doing them. When I finally got through the bookwork, I had to try and apply skills I barely remembered at the pool. I can recall how intimidated I was, sitting on the edge of the pool, surrounded by adults, all trying to learn to dive at the same time as me. Looking back, I don't know why I expected to be in a class with kids my age, but it made it all the more daunting to start practicing. The pool work was scary because it was all new. It's the first time you're in the water, and you have to realize that if you mess up, you can die. What a fun realization for a 12-year-old. I got through the pool training, though, and we were off to the island Bonaire to dive. Bonaire is great for new divers. Its main attraction is the walk-in dives off the coast, with few sharks and stunning reefs. It's not great, on the other hand, if you're terrified of the ocean. I mean, it's beautiful, but oh man. I was with the dive instructor for my certification in open water, and once we did several basic checks that I wasn't going to, die if he looked away for more than 2 seconds, we swam around the reef. Now, if you've never been diving, you won't know this, but seemingly universally among divers, there's a uniting initial terror. There's a place where the reef cuts off. You find the edge and look over it into a darkening void, and for a second you're forced to imagine what might be down there. We've all seen the edge of the reef in Nemo, but it's so much more space than you can imagine. My instructor was just fine going into the open water. Cheerful, even. As you might expect, I was distinctly not. But I did hover by the edge and test my resolve before letting myself turn away. I got fully certified after that dive. It meant I could go diving with my parents and see everything the island had to offer. We went diving off a dock near the end of vacation, and I realized the water wasn't scaring me so much anymore. My mom showed me the tiny Christmas tree worms that could pull themselves into the reef in the blink of an eye, and the bright fairy baslets above the coral. I realized I'd become a stronger diver, more capable of controlling the technical aspects of diving, so I could hover just above the reef, looking at all the miniature ecosystems I'd never been able to encounter before. Still, I was wary of the blue vacuum above me, and honestly a little scared of the huge legs of the dock and its dark, ominous shadow. The last dive I distinctly remember was a double reef, a place where 2 reefs from different islands meet, with these islands being mainland Bonaire and a small island off its coast. The lowest point was right at my depth limit, and I can remember swimming above my parents, watching the bubbles they breathed out fly past with a domed jellyfish shape. I remember the juvenile damselfish we saw, reflecting bright blue spots, and the parrotfish you could hear quietly crunching the coral. But what I most remember is getting close to the shore and realizing I was freezing cold, but didn't want to get out. Diving's an adventure I would never give up, despite my anxiety in the water. It's the reason my parents met, and an experience they gave me that I'm still coming to fully appreciate. It's easy to be scared of the unknown, whether that's the edge of the reef, the shore, or even just opening the diving manual, but it's worth trying to learn and explore. There's beauty in the unfamiliar and mystery in the life you may find.
According to my parents, when I was 2 years old, I would eat pizza with my feet. Now, I don't know the validity of this, since there's no photographic evidence from this time, but I do know that I love pizza. So when I got the opportunity to work in an Italian pizza restaurant at the end of last year, I couldn't pass it up. I've been able to gain some amazing experiences from working at La Vita e Bella, and I've learned how to adapt as well as a strong sense of responsibility. I would say that most of the time, work just blends together, but there is one day that I will never forget from my second week of working. Firstly, I need to do a little explaining about how our restaurant works. Most nights, I work as a cashier behind the register. Right behind the register is where we make the pizzas. We also have a big walk-in refrigerator in the back of the restaurant where the extra pizza ingredients are stored. Throughout the night, our pizza maker, Francesco, constantly has to go to the walk-in box and get more ingredients, the most important being pizza sauce. So that fateful night, as I'm doing my job, I see out of the corner of my eye Francesco coming through with a big pot of pizza sauce. I get out of the way, as I would any other night, by just leaning up real close against the cashier counter. And as he passes me by, I thought nothing of it. But less than 3 seconds later, I hear a big clang and feel a cold, wet sensation on my legs. As I slowly look down, all I see is yummy red pizza sauce covering both my legs. As I slowly pan my eyes back up, I can see my bosses and coworkers' shocked expressions and them failing to hold back their laughter. This was not part of my training. Eventually, we were able to get my legs cleaned off, and now we have to wear pants to work. So what I was able to learn from this experience is that anything can happen at any time, and you just gotta adapt. Now, I fully get out of Francesco ways when it comes to with pizza sauce. I have been able to become better at adjusting myself with customers and within strange problems within my life. One of the responsibilities of being a cashier is that every night I have to make new dressing cups. We have all the regular ones, ranch, balsamic vinaigrette, Caesar, but our most popular is our homemade Italian dressing. Italian dressing is by far the hardest to make. It takes the most amount of time and is incredibly greasy and oily when you're done. So one night, after I made about 40 Italian dressing cups, which took a good amount of time to do, I had the brilliant idea of taking about 20 of them to where we store them. I thought this would save me so much time, but I can admit it was not one of my finest ideas. As I'm walking over, with one hand on the bottom and one hand on top of my very unstable tower of Italian dressing cups, one of my coworkers starts coming towards me, and I go to move my tower out of the way. However, I had not accounted for the fact that this sideways movement would cause the whole tower to bend in the middle. In an almost slow motion replay, I can see the middle of the tower begin to fall, taking the rest with it. Kaboom. 90% ended up on the floor. And I had to spend another 10 minutes cleaning it all up. Afterward, I even had to remake the 20 that had spent on the floor. From this experience, I learned not to bite off more than I could chew, and that it was my responsibility to fix my own messes. I couldn't place the blame on others and just have them fix it for me. These experiences helped me to develop a strong sense of responsibility, and they have helped me to recognize the importance of taking responsibility for my actions and doing what I can to fix them. Now, another thing I want to talk about is how to be a good customer from the perspective of a server. The biggest thing to understand is that servers are human and that they can and will make mistakes. For example, one time, I brought out a plate of our famous spaghetti and meatballs. Except I had not let the chef fully finish making it. I don't know exactly what happened, but I ended up bringing out a plate of spaghetti and meatballs but without the tomato sauce or the meatballs. Now, the guy that had ordered this was the perfect example of a good customer. Once he got his food, he nicely let me know there was something wrong with it and if I could get it fixed. He didn't make a huge deal of it or get incredibly angry or mad. He was just understanding. This is how to be a good customer. Lastly, I think it would be a great idea for everyone to at some point work in the food service industry and experience firsthand just how hard it can be. I'm not saying for a long time, maybe just 6 or so months. I think it would be a huge eye-opening experience for those who look down on people who work in the food service industry. All in all, I would not trade my time working at La Vita Bella for anything. Well, maybe I would for the ability to eat pizza with my feet again. Thank you.
Brotherhood. Even if this is not by blood, this is something I'm sure some people in this room have experienced before. It is that one person who you can always connect with, no matter the situation or topic, because you have that special, unique bond. Hello, I'm Eric Hazelton, for everyone who does not know me. I'm up here today to talk about my older brother, Ben. He has been more than just a brother to me, but rather one of my biggest supporters and best friends. Over the years, the relationship between us has grown stronger and has helped me become the person I am today. Our brotherhood has come to be unbreakable because of many hardships and memories that have bonded us together. When I was going through my early elementary school years, I remember attending my brother's soccer games, and these sights were magnificent to the younger me at the time. Then the time came where I decided to play soccer myself. I immediately fell in love with the beautiful game, and as the years passed by, I continued playing and training. As I got bigger and older, my brother and I started to play soccer together more and more, and it became more of a fun, competitive, brotherly rivalry. From just passing and shooting in the backyard to one-on-one games. And as you all can probably expect, Ben had quite the advantage as he is 4 years older than me, and this really showed. Despite his backyard prevail in soccer, he still helped me and made me better by supporting me in all my games and pushing me to be better in any way I can. And still does to this day. When I was growing up, I was one of 3 children, with an older sister named Gracie, who was the eldest of the 3, and with me being the youngest. Gracie was born with a severe neuromuscular disability, which took away her ability to walk and talk. Gracie was a crucial part of early life and even up to this moment, but little did I know at the time that she'd be the center of the largest hardship of my life. In 2012, Gracie tragically passed away. Since that very day, the connection between Ben and me became more clear than ever before. I distinctly remember the days I spent together with Ben before and after the passing of Gracie. From the moment we got the phone call about her entering the hospital to the panic of having to rush back to Richmond while on a family trip in Wyoming, so we'd have the chance to see her one last time. Throughout the stressful time, Ben was always checking in with me and trying to reassure me that everything was going to be okay. The most vivid image in my mind is when Ben and I were holding her hands as she passed away. At this single point, Ben and I became closer and more bonded than ever before, as we were both by her side as she passed away. Ever since this moment, I have never taken Ben for granted because I now know how quickly someone can vanish from your life, as well as he's the only person in my life who understands and has experienced what it's like to have a sibling pass away in such a sudden amount of time. Lastly, I'd like to thank him for the advice he gives to me, from helping me navigate the path of high school and then to the leap into college. It is incredibly helpful that he's just one phone call away from any advice I needed, ranging from English class essays to late-night FaceTime calls, where I'd bombard him with questions to help me complete my Common App applications. Also, I've been incredibly lucky that Ben attends UVA, which is only 1 hour away, so I've had the opportunity to visit him on multiple occasions, creating some of the best memories I have with him. I distinctly remember the days and nights where I would visit him when UVA would have a football game at home, from the parties on the lawn before the game to the late-night celebrations hosted at his friends' houses, all leading up to inevitable early AM sleep. I have also created more wholesome memories, such as family graduations or shared birthday dinners with Ben. I hope I leave you all thinking about that one person in your life who you can always count on to be there for you. And I'd recommend that you do not take them for granted, because that person will change their life forever. Thank you.
I like all things Steward. Maybe except the parking lot. I thought I could avoid an accident for the brief 2 years that I've been here, but unfortunately, I wasn't so lucky. What I am lucky for is the lifetime friends and great experiences that have resulted from a risky situation. I was extremely nervous about what could go wrong in my transition here, but I can honestly say it was all for the better. Being born in the Maryland, D.C. area has created an attachment for me. Everybody that knows me well knows that adjusting to change really isn't my thing. I could never imagine leaving such a special place. I knew it like the back of my hand despite my absolutely terrible sense of direction. I could take you to see the numerous monuments and the illustrious museums that cluster D.C. I could take you to the famous Ben's Chili Bowl and the hundreds of other great restaurants. I could also help you experience the great combo of carry-out chicken, wings, and mumbo sauce. Now that's something I think everyone should try if you haven't already. Anyway, all these things that made up my childhood and are the only things I've ever known throughout my life could possibly be left behind and forgotten. Also, considering my parents, basketball teammates, and friends who I've known since elementary school all the way until now, I could never imagine life without them. But there always comes a time where sometimes you have to consider yourself and what your plans are for the future. My dad would always say, "Son, without sacrifice, there is no achievement." Along with many other things where, let's be honest, I didn't really want to hear at the time. But the things he said always, and I mean always, used to linger in my mind when I needed those lessons the most. In this situation, going into my senior year, I was faced with the possibility of giving up on the thing that I loved the most. Basketball plays a major role in my life and always will. With no athletic scholarships in hand and a possible cancel season due to COVID-19, depression was at its highest for me. With emotions running high and my back against the wall, I had to find a way to make my dream of playing at the collegiate level work. I couldn't imagine the regret I would feel if I didn't accomplish this goal for my parents, and I surely wasn't ready to give up basketball for good. If it meant that I had to travel to the ends of the earth to accomplish this goal, I would 1,000% do it. So I considered transferring schools, which I had never done before in my entire life. Generally, you hear all the sad stories of students who transfer schools and never make friends or just end up not liking the school at all. When Steward was presented as an option, I promise you switching states to go to school was the dead last option. There was absolutely no way possible I was doing this. But with the help of my parents, keeping me open-minded, and helping me see the potential I could reach at this school, I eventually made the decision to come here. With this decision, I would have to move in with my grandparents, travel everywhere on my own with little knowledge of the area, and really engage myself in the community to make things feel normal again. With my personality, I know my mom was worried about me. I was so dependent on my parents that I knew in her mind she was saying, "There is no way the Choopy I know is going through with this." Yes, Choopy, I know, right? But again, that deep, assertive, and terrifying voice in the back of my head said, "With no sacrifice, there is no achievement." So I went through with this idea, very afraid of the possibilities, but excited for what the future held. Steward gave me a second chance when I needed it the most. And in no way did I end up having one of those transfer sob stories. The first person I interacted here with was Daniel Heitman. I'm pretty sure you can guess how that went. His vibrant energy and personality and our common interest with basketball made us the best of friends right off the bat. From then on, I continued to make good friends. This energy even carried on with my teachers, which surprised me the most. The dedication that these teachers have towards their students is unmatched, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. In other words, my transition here has been nothing but the best. I've truly grown as a person and a student. I also couldn't forget to mention that for the next 4 years, I will be attending St. Francis University in Loretto, Pennsylvania, on a full Division I athletic scholarship. My path was surely unique, and for all the young people listening and watching, yours will be too. I don't know where I would be without sacrifice. One of the most important lessons I've learned throughout my high school career is that it is perfectly fine to be a little selfish when it comes to your dreams and aspirations, and to always bet on yourself. At the lowest point probably ever in my life, I chose to take a risk, and it surely paid dividends. I say all this to say, never mind the journey. As long as your eyes are set on the destination, you will surely be okay. Thank you.
Hey guys, good morning. You know, it's actually pretty funny. I had this whole speech planned about how I used to suck at baseball, and now I suck slightly less. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't a bad speech by any means, but it was a speech that I thought you wanted to hear, not the speech I wanted to give. So instead of that speech, I'm just gonna speak from the heart. Let me start with the actual writing of my speech. Every time I would sit down to practice, I would think to myself, man, this is just flat out not good, and totally rewrite it from scratch. It never lived up to my impossibly high expectations. When I'm not the best at something, it's really hard for me to see it through. It might be a little bit immature, but that's just how I am. For better or worse, I don't think you'll meet anyone as competitive as I am. That's why I have to be the best at everything. Why I turn everything into a competition, even writing a senior speech. Now at this point, you probably either admire my confidence or think I'm an arrogant jerk who's obsessed with winning. For those of you in the latter, I think you're wrong. Not about the arrogant jerk part, but about the obsession with winning. There's literally nothing in this world I detest more than losing. I have a story for you guys. So last year, after the baseball team suffered a gut-wrenching 1-0 loss in the conference finals, following the game, I stormed off to my car and sulked in my curiosity. I was in my hot black car, no AC, no music, for 30 minutes until the parking lot was well empty. Now, based on this, it's pretty logical to assume that I had something to do with why we lost. In reality, I was a pinch runner. We got no hit. I didn't even get off the bench. This personal fear of losing has a lot of control over my decision making. I'm too scared to say no to things and not try because I see missed opportunities as a loss. And once I try something, I just have to be the best. And that's a recipe for disaster. Because of this, I partake in a myriad of hobbies and activities. I'm the class president. I am the president of the debate club. I'm on the chess team. I did Battle of the Brains. I play baseball. I taught myself how to juggle, play guitar, play ukulele, play piano, and skateboard, among many other things. But no matter how many trivial hobbies or skills I pick up, I just can't seem to escape my fear of losing. This fear really developed during quarantine. I suffered losses daily that just began to chip away at my soul until there was almost nothing left. I was in no way prepared to end sophomore year in my room, and I watched everything I worked so hard for crumble beneath my fingers. My first year on varsity, getting my license, all the grandiose plans I made with my friends for that summer. The only time I saw my friends was through Pixels, and I spent most days just in my bed waiting for my phone to ring. I didn't eat, I didn't sleep, and I cried a lot, just like when I was a baby. I was flat out defeated. I wasn't used to taking losses everywhere I turned, and that was pretty scary for me. I mean, obviously I made it, but I wouldn't have without the best support system a guy could ask for. Thank you to Kira for always being my best friend, and whether you're just a text away or down the road, I know you're always there for me, and that makes me feel like I can take on the world. To Amaya, those nightly car conversations with you are the only thing that have gotten me this far. Thank you for being there for that. To Ryan, thank you for always being there for me and being my sometimes literal partner in crime. You make my bad ideas slightly better and always help me see it through. To McCrae, thank you for always being there to calm me down and let me blow off some steam after a long day. To Jake, thank you for always knowing exactly what to say and helping me pull out of those deep spirals. To Wes and Callan, I never thought I'd be able to see the day where I could say that you guys aren't just my siblings, but you're my friends. Finally, to my mom and dad, I know I haven't always made it easy. Don't look at me like that, you're gonna make me cry. I know I haven't always made it easy, and I know it doesn't always seem like it, but the love and effort you put in does not go unnoticed nor unappreciated. And thank you for everybody else who I didn't get to mention by name. You guys have all shaped me into the man I am today, and I couldn't be happier for that. Nowadays, I'm still losing some, but definitely winning most. And don't challenge me to any competition, because I will enthusiastically accept and then challenge you to rematches until I win, and then proceed to talk smack like I beat you on the first try. And for those of you who wonder why I take competition so seriously, like board games or Mario Kart, I hope this answers your question. So here's so many more wins. Thank you all. You've been a lovely audience for the last 4 minutes, the last 18 years.
Does anyone here have a problem with church giggles? Yeah, like one of those moments you just can't stop laughing or giggling at an inappropriate occasion? Well, if so, I'm very sorry to hear about it, because I don't have that problem. Instead, I cry. For as long as I can remember, I've always felt this compelling urge to cry at some of the rather trivial matters. The truth is, I usually don't even feel that sad, but the tears just end up gushing out of my eyes despite my attempts to hold them back. Now, let me share with you a few of these moments, so if you ever experience the same thing, you would not have to be embarrassed by the situation. My crying problem, and that's how I'm going to refer to it for now, could be foreseen at a very young age considering how much I cried as a child. When I was about 3 years old, I felt a compulsion to make everything as perfect as they could be. So, on a very fine morning, I was getting ready for kindergarten, as my Mary Jane shoes felt too loose with the way they were, but too tight with an extra buckle. Unsurprisingly, I sat on the floor and cried. With us being almost late to kindergarten, my mom was frustrated, but I had already entered this realm of crying spirits to the point that I completely lost control over my emotions. Getting a little annoyed, which I don't blame her for, my mom tried to scare me into stop crying by saying, "If you don't stop, the aliens are gonna abduct you." The air froze. Everything was silent. A second later, I started crying again, even louder. Because crying during kindergarten is considered relatively forgivable, I would love to have the story end here, but it didn't. Throughout the years, the crying problem evolved. If you saw me a few years ago at the movie theater watching the Avengers Endgame with my best friend Lily, you might assume that I was a huge Marvel fan based on how much I was crying. By the way, I'm guessing that at this point, we don't need any spoiler alerts. Back to the story. As soon as Black Widow died, I could feel the tears building up in my eyes. Taking a few deep breaths, I tried to hold them back. But just as I was about to succeed, the tears suddenly turned to an aggressive sob when Iron Man died as well. You probably guessed that I was very attached to the characters. Perhaps, but only for the last couple of hours though. At that point, I could barely recall their names. It was the very first time that I've watched any Marvel movie. So, Lily, I'm very sorry I was being a little distracting during the movie. Hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. The last story that I'm going to share took place on the Steward campus. Believe it or not, a school setting is arguably the worst place for anyone to lose control over their tears. After taking an A-push test, I knew I messed it up. My feelings were confirmed that I saw the grade, and again I felt a familiar force building up within me. If anyone happened to be passing through the math hallway on that day, they would have seen me leaning against the wall and crying my heart out as I talked to Miss Dwelly in the haste of everyone else trying to get to their next class. Honestly, as I come to think about it now, I can barely remember what I said, but I do remember Miss Dwelly telling me that she'll help me to find a studying method that works just for me. So if you're in A-push or planning to take it, don't be scared about it. Things got better. And I've never cried for that class ever since. Here are only 3 out of the countless moments when I uncontrollably cried at times that I probably should not have done so. But the most important lesson my crying problem has taught me is that there's nothing wrong with showing your emotions. So if you ever end up in the same situation, don't feel embarrassed. I've been there too, many times. Thank you.
Let's give another round of applause to all of our speakers today.